For 30 years, the Women's World Cup came free with the men's tournament. Broadcasters treated it as a bonus, not a product, so the market never attached a real price to it. In 2023, FIFA changed the deal and told networks to pay a fair price for the women's tournament alone. The biggest broadcasters in Europe offered bids that were 10 to 100 times lower than the men's rights. Infantino called the offers disrespectful and threatened a blackout in major markets. Here's why that standoff created a new asset class and what it means for the next deal you structure. You could buy the Men's World Cup rights anytime before 2023, and FIFA threw the women's tournament in at no extra charge. It sounds like a bargain, but it created a massive blind spot. When something is never priced on its own, the market treats it like it has no value. Broadcasters saw no reason to promote a tournament they picked up for free, which meant sponsors never saw a separate line item for women's football. Production budgets, marketing spend, and primetime slots all flowed to the men's event because that remained the only property anyone had actually paid for. The women's tournament turned into an afterthought because the business model left it invisible to the people holding the money, not because the product itself was weak, and that invisible asset was about to become the center of a $300 million fight. That's the same reason Coca-Cola built Diet Coke and Coke Zero as two distinct products instead of just calling one Coke Light. Two drinks can sit under one roof, but each needs its own identity, formula, and price tag, or neither thrives. For 3 decades, the Women's World Cup sat in the shadows, packaged so tightly with the men's tournament that nobody could see its real worth by itself. You can't sell what the market can't price. And for 30 years, FIFA never gave the market a chance to value women's football as its own product. In 2023, FIFA changed the playbook entirely. They ripped the two tournaments apart and told broadcasters the Women's World Cup now carried its own price tag. Infantino took the strategy public and announced that broadcasters in Europe's biggest markets were putting forward bids that barely registered next to what they paid for the men's rights, and he branded those offers disrespectful. He demanded networks stop treating women's football as a free add-on because the message was simple: if you want this product, you need to write a real check. FIFA positioned the unbundling as a step toward equality, but the real engine was economics. You can't build a billion-dollar property if the market never learns what it costs. The reaction came instantly and ugly. Networks across England, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain pushed back hard, with some of them threatening to walk away entirely rather than pay what FIFA was asking. Infantino didn't blink. He warned fans they might not see the tournament at all if broadcasters refused to pay, which meant the biggest Women's World Cup in history looked like it could face a blackout in its largest markets. The tension peaked just weeks before kickoff, with FIFA signing last-minute deals in Japan and China to avoid dead air while the European standoff dragged on. On paper, the shortfall looked like a failure. FIFA had set a $300 million target for broadcast rights and ended up with roughly $200 million globally after the standoff. But that gap was market discovery in disguise. It established a floor price that had never existed, and that floor turned into the launch pad for everything that followed. The real story isn't the standoff, it's what the numbers proved once the smoke cleared. The 2023 Women's World Cup pulled in over $570 million in total revenue and broke even for the first time in the tournament's history. That's a massive shift from a property that used to be invisible on the balance sheet, and it proved that women's football could support itself financially even before the Netflix deal closed. The money broke down like this. Broadcast rights generated roughly $200 million globally, and that fell about $100 million short of FIFA's internal target, but it remained the most valuable women's sports broadcast deal ever recorded. Sponsorship turned into the real surprise because global data estimated the tournament pulled in roughly $308 million from 20 main sponsors, including dedicated women's-only tiers like Visa and Zero. For the first time, brands could buy women's football inventory without also paying for the men's tournament, letting companies target women's sports fans directly, instead of buying a bundled package they didn't want. Ticketing and hospitality added another $43 million, and the tournament reached a record global audience. That's the hidden ROI play. Lower rights fees plus a fast-growing audience meant sponsors who bought early got a discount on a rising asset. Stack that next to the men's side for context. Qatar's 2022 Men's World Cup pulled in about $1.7 billion in sponsorship money alone, and broadcast rights for that event run in the billions. Those women's numbers are smaller, which nobody disputes. What matters more is the growth curve, because brands that invested in the women's tournament paid far less per impression than they would have for the men's event, and they reached an audience that's growing faster and engaging harder on digital platforms. Some publishers reported equal or higher ad revenue around Women's World Cup coverage compared to the men's tournament in certain markets, meaning the inventory is already competitive there. Brands like Unilever signed multi-year deals through 2027, betting that early buyers would lock in rates before the next price hike. What looked like a $100 million miss was actually the first time the market put a real price on women's football, and that price now forms the floor for every future deal. The real proof skipped 2023 entirely. It arrived a year later when Netflix wrote a check that proved separating the women's rights from the men's tournament had created an asset the market actually wanted. In December 2024, Netflix signed a deal for the exclusive US rights to the 2027 and 2031 Women's World Cup. This marks the first full competition Netflix has ever bought exclusively. They'll stream every match live, produce studio coverage in both English and Spanish, and run a documentary series leading up to both tournaments. Netflix Chief Content Officer Bella Bajaria explained they see the tournament as a premium property rather than a niche add-on, pointing to the electric atmosphere in France in 2019 and the energy in Australia and New Zealand as proof that fandom is growing fast. Infantino labeled it a landmark moment for sports media rights. He told reporters the deal sends a strong message about the real value of the Women's World Cup and the global women's game. And the timing is no accident because FIFA had just spent a cycle proving that the tournament could generate real money on its own. And Netflix bought in because the asset now carried a clear price and a growth curve that traditional broadcasters were starting to recognize. In May 2025, Infantino raised the bar again. He announced FIFA is targeting $1 billion in revenue from the Women's World Cup alone, with every dollar reinvested into the women's game. The 2031 tournament expands from 32 teams to 48, with the United States poised to host, meaning more matches, inventory, and commercial surface area. That 75% jump from 2023's baseline is real. It's the direct result of unbundling a hidden asset and letting the market discover what it was actually worth. The asset that used to hide in plain sight now carries a price tag, gets real promotion, and comes packaged as a standalone product that the world's biggest streaming platform was willing to pay for. The 2023 shortfall was just the opening act. The Netflix deal proved that a global streamer would pay exclusive money for women's football, and the $1 billion target is where this story heads next. Here's what this means for you if you're structuring deals in sports, media, or sponsorship. Lesson 1 is simple. When a property has proven standalone demand, separating it from a larger bundle creates independent pricing power and attracts new platform buyers who would never bid on the full package. FIFA proved that bundling doesn't protect value, it hides it. Next time a rights holder wants to package a growing asset with a mature one, think about whether you're leaving money on the table. Lesson 2 is about timing and knowing when you have the upper hand. Sell after a breakout commercial success while the asset is hot. Wait too long and the market cools off. Diversify your buyers across traditional broadcasters and streaming platforms to create competition. Set ambitious targets, but accept that the first standalone sale might undershoot because the market is still learning what the asset is worth. That shortfall is market discovery instead of failure. Your second cycle is almost always where the real money shows up. Lesson 3 covers what to measure. Your primary metric is media rights fees per cycle plus year-over-year growth. Secondary metrics include sponsorship revenue, activation quality, ticketing yield, and downstream platform deals like the Netflix agreement. Leading indicators cover audience growth, social engagement, and sponsor renewal rates. Track them over multiple cycles because the real payoff shows up in the second or third standalone sale when the market has adjusted. Next time you're structuring rights for a growing property, remember this: bundling can hide value just as easily as it can protect it. The FIFA Women's World Cup story shows that sometimes the biggest unlock comes from letting the asset stand independently. Unbundling created more than fairness. It created a new asset class worth tracking across every sport, and the brands that bought in early are sitting on a discount that won't last forever. If you want more deal breakdowns like this, subscribe to Revenue Racers and keep watching so you don't miss the next one.